Everyone, we really have a very interesting session now that I think you all should be excited about. Please welcome Pranav Venpati, founder and CEO of Makers Hive, a startup that has developed KALARM, a fully functional bionic arm for limb amputees, named in honor of Dr. A.P.J. Abdul Kalam. I'll also be moderating this session. Welcome, Pranav.
A very good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pranav, founder and CEO of Makers Hive. Before starting with the presentation, I would like to play a small video. It's a small short film about a mother. It's a real story of one of the users of KALARM, just so you understand the impact that it is creating in people's lives.
अपना ख्याल रखना, खाना समय पे खा लेना।
हाँ माँ, और आपने मेरी डॉक्यूमेंट्स वाली फाइल देखी है?
वो छोटी अलमारी के ऊपर ही तो रखी है। मिली?
मिल गई।
क्या होगा तेरा मेरे बिना?
आप अपना ख्याल रखना माँ।
तू मेरी चिंता मत कर, अपने काम में अच्छे से मन लगाना। उल्टे हाथ से आशीर्वाद नहीं देते।
चलो नीचे आओ माँ, दरवाजा खोलो। कैसी लगी?
अच्छी है। ये पहनाने में तुझे मदद करनी पड़ेगी।
अब मेरी मदद की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी माँ।
This was story of one of the users, but obviously the mother and kid could not act, so we had to again hire a couple of actors to make a small short film out of it. So I started Makers Hive in the year 2018 with inspiration from our former beloved president, Dr. A.P.J. Abdul Kalam. And that's why we also named our first product as KALARM, K-A-L-A-R-M, as a tribute to Kalam sir. At the same time, Kal in Hindi means tomorrow, so it's like the hand of the future. I was very fortunate to have had a couple of interactions with him, and I was also very fortunate to be mentored by Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, the father of Green Revolution. So when I was having interaction with Dr. Swaminathan, as a kid, I never understood the importance of self-reliance or the whole concept of Make in India or Atmanirbhar Bharat, etc. I heard a story that few years ago at the India-China border, if there are some soldiers who lose their hands or legs in the conflict, they would come back, then the Ministry of Defense would try to arrange some prosthetics. And because all the advanced prosthetics in the world, they cost they're very expensive. They cost upwards of 30 lakhs to as high as 60 lakh rupees. So obviously they can't afford them. So what's the solution? They go and place an order with some distributor who basically buys some white label products from China. So basically a person who lost a hand because of the border conflict is again getting a hand from China itself. So I was very shocked listening to this story. Fast forward to today, that's not happening anymore. Thanks to some of the engineers that have been working. Now they're doing KALARM fitments for people who are losing their hands in the Indian Armed Forces. So just like the way Dr. Kalam used to ask every kid he meets, what's your dream? So it became my habit also to ask every single person to whom we do the fitments, I ask them what's their dream. So when I met a bilateral amputee, I can't take his name, I asked him, what's your dream? And he mentioned, Pranav, today if I have to go to washroom, my mother has to come and clean me up. I don't even have basic dignity in life. And you're talking about big fancy words like dreams. And that shook me. And we thought we will not let this happen. And the major reason is there are a lot of advanced solutions in the West, right? But none of these are actually affordable for people, especially in developing nations like India. And unless and until we make technology affordable, it's not accessible for anybody, right? So we thought we'll change that narrative. And fast forward to today, the story continues. The same person recently graduated from IIM Bangalore. He's starting his own startup for which he is raising around 2 crore seed capital right now. I don't want to get into too many statistics of, how many people are, it's a very big need. Even in India, there are more than about 25-30 lakh people who need these hands. But the major problem is, unlike legs, hands are very complex, right? Like, for example, if you want to hold an egg, you need certain kind of sensitivity that you don't break it. At the same time, if you want to hold a bag, you need certain kind of strength, right? So the hands have to be dexterous enough to be able to perform all these activities. For a normal human, we have two kinds of feedback, right? We actually have visual feedback where we look at something and assess how much pressure I need to apply on that particular object. At the same time, we have a touch feedback. But if you look at these bionic hands, they have neither. So that's why they're outrageously expensive. A typical bionic hand costs upwards of, like I told you, 30 lakhs to as high as 60 lakh rupees. Then we took up, and the other problem is, like the speaker before me has mentioned, the hardware innovation is extremely expensive. There is no other company in the world that spent less than 100 to 120 crores in research to build a bionic hand and bring it out into the production. We're very proud to say that in India, being in India, we spent hardly 29.75 crores. We basically spent 6.5 years in research. So we basically spent 67% less money and 20% less time than anybody else in the world to build a product that is almost 8 to 10 times more affordable. And how did that happen? Here again, we have taken inspiration from Dr. Kalam and institutions like ISRO. When you're actually constrained, when you have limitations, whether it is in terms of human resources, whether it is in terms of financial resources, it can be in terms of any limitations, and yet you desperately want to solve a problem, then you start looking at the problem in a completely different way. You start coming out with innovative solutions. So we thought we would do the same. While NASA is spending billions of dollars to do something, we know that our scientists here at ISRO are doing the same thing at a fraction of price. And what did they do? Simple. They just did build over buy. rather than depending on any other off-the-shelf components, build everything on our own. So we did the same thing. And after 6 years of research, we got almost 8 patents later, we were able to build this product. And rather than talking more about the features of the product, I would rather have one of the users, his name is Vamshi. He comes from a village. Vamshi lost his hand probably when he was in 8th or 9th standard. And because of that, he discontinued his education because he's being bullied in school. So he was staying home and probably earning 2,000 rupees a month, whatever he gets as a pension from the government, and always dependent on his mom. But today, I would actually like all of you to encourage Vamshi because he came here to present and demonstrate the hand for all of you. He might be a little scared because he has some stage fright, but I think all of you can, support him. I would also request one person to come from the audience to shake hands with Vamshi, just so I can explain what happens in the hand. Anyone? Now, if you observe here, this particular hand is taking the shape of his hand. It looks very simple, but there are advanced machine learning algorithms that are trying to understand what object he is trying to hold. You can release Vamshi. And at the same time, you would have observed that when he's actually shaking hands with you, the grip is firm enough, but at the same time, it's not squeezing your hand completely, right? So that's just one example of how machine learning can be used in building real-world problems like KALARM Bionic hand. Thank you. Vamshi, you can write something and show. Things like writing, things like drinking water, eating food, all these things we might take it for granted, right? But Vamshi was not able to do this few years ago. He was completely dependent on his mom for every basic activity. Thank you, Vamshi. You can drink water, you can do any other activities and show. So we take all these small things for granted, but however, what it gave him is basically freedom, right? Now, fast forward to today, Vamshi, he now lives alone in Hyderabad, coming from a village, and now he's working. He earns about 25,000-30,000 rupees, drives his own vehicle to office, and then cooks his own food. So he's basically not dependent on everyone. Now, why is that important? The thing is, a lot of people people with disabilities, when they lose a hand or a leg or due to some unfortunate incident, they are pushed into poverty. And when they get married, their entire family is pushed into poverty. Now, with just one product, what happens is you're able to bring people out of poverty. The next generations, they don't have to face any issues because of this. It looks like a very small innovation, but I think there's a lot of need for Indian founders from India to need to actually look at problem statements that are in every day. You might see any problem statements. Thank you, Vamshi. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot. Yeah. To actually look at the problem statements of what all can be done using technology and just start building solutions. Now, the same product, if you look at how the hand is working, whenever a normal human being thinks about moving their fingers, they automatically move, right? But for people who lose their hands, whenever they think about opening and closing their hand, you observe these muscular movements on the surface. They emit minute electrical impulses in micro and millivolts. So these are called electromyography signals. So we built a pair of sensors that can understand what a person is trying to do and sending those into a bionic controller to control them using a motors in a robotic hand. Now we thought, if we can use, we already solved a big problem. How can we extend the same solution, the R&D that we've done, into building other solutions, right? So we came up with another solution for Parkinson's. You know that people with Parkinson's, they get tremors, they don't have control over their hands, right? So we thought, okay, we started studying the signals from the hand, you know, how their hand is moving and all that, because we already have some experience in signal processing and all that with EMG. And we thought rather than sending it to the muscles, sending it to the motors, what if we actually send those signals back into the human body through vibrotactile stimulations or electrical impulses, and we were able to arrest the movements? I'd like you to play the next video. You can see how she's actually struggling to do a basic motor function. Next. And just after just using this, you can see the difference. Next. The next video. Yeah. Even here, this patient was actually about to enter a deep brain stimulation surgery that cost about 25 to 30 lakhs. And now just using this particular device, which would, we're planning to bring it to the market at around 1 lakh rupees, they're able to, she's able to get control back. Can you play it again so that you can observe the difference? So what I wanted to actually cover today is I just wanted to give a couple of examples of what just a bunch of 25, 30 people sitting here in Hyderabad could do. I hope that 7 years ago when we started, 7.5 years ago, probably there are only very few startups that are doing it. But with the whole Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat, all these things getting a lot of prominence, you can actually see a lot of such startups that are coming up. And I would request all the people here, whether you're industry leaders or whether you're investors or startups, just keep collaborating, and the power of collaboration can give results like this. Thank you.
So wasn't that inspiring? Let's have a very big round of applause. This is what Make in India looks like, isn't it? So Pranav, this was very inspiring, all of that. I mean, we are all very engaged. We were so engaged listening to you. But having said that, you mentioned that it was a 6.5, 7-year journey to launch the product in a market, But creating a hardware like this, which is so high-end, also requires a lot of resources. While you mentioned you were able to do it at 2930 CR, but I mean, what are the challenges then being a hardware startup? Because all the newspaper headlines, we talk about funding news, all of that goes to the B2C companies.
Right. So one of the major issues that not just as most of the hardware startups face, the first thing is obviously funding. But that's actually changing right now. The ecosystem there's a lot of development that's happening in the ecosystem. But putting funding aside, the other major issues is actually when we started, initially we had heavy reliance on countries like China, Taiwan, and places like that, because we didn't have a lot of support in terms of, like if I give the example of a hand, there are 113 different components that go into a hand that come from 20 different processes, right? So it's very complicated to build these products. So getting high quality vendors, because obviously most of the vendors are only focused on bigger order sizes and all that, but startups have very limited resources. They can't even order MOQs. So one of the biggest issues that we faced initially was actually finding these people. However, now in the whole 7-year journey, now we're able to find that there are a lot of prototyping manufacturing centers that have come up where they're actually supporting hardware startups. So things are actually shifting. Earlier, the problem was the ecosystem itself was not fully developed, but that's changing very rapidly now.
Okay, so that's good to hear. And what about the funding? I mean, how easy or difficult it is? Because I believe, especially for hardware, from what I understand, a lot of VCs and PE funds are not really interested because they want something which is like ready to be launched in the market.
Correct. So the biggest issue is, especially in countries like India, we don't have a lot of patient capital.
Exactly.
Because people want results immediately. Right? For example, KALARM, we took 6.5 years to develop. And when I went just with a PPT or a piece of paper with an investor, and they're just seeing like 24-year-old kid who's asking for 10 crores, 20 crores, they cannot trust, right? So that patient capital is missing. However, right now things are shifting a little, because even there are so many fund of funds that the government is launching right now. There are a lot of grants, whether it is with the Department of Science and Technology, with the Technology Development Board, with the Department of Biotechnology. A lot of funds, grants are being provided right now. So things are shifting. So things look very optimistic right now. Yeah.
Can you share about some of the early grants that helped you?
So there are so many grants. Like for example, DBT, Department of Biotechnology, has something called as a big grant, right? They give almost 50 lakh rupees for a startup. So based on your technology readiness level, you have a scale of 1 to 9. Whether you are between 1 to 3 or between 4 to 6, based on your technology readiness level, the governments are providing different grants. So, yeah, like I said, and not just that, even when you reach a production level, the government is also providing grant in aid and loans at very low interest rate also, something at 5 to 6% interest rate, so that people can actually set up the manufacturing unit and things like that.
So essentially you are a government-backed startup.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and can you also, very quickly, I see time's up. So, I mean, you mentioned briefly about how there was difficulty in getting vendors in India. So did you also have to rely on China during your initial stages?
Yes, initially we had to rely on China, probably in the first year. But slowly then we were able to find very high quality vendors within India itself, because it was literally like the last decade. We've been almost active for the last decade. And we actually could see the entire journey of how very good quality CNC, machining, whether it is 3D printing, all these have actually developed and have come into like where we reached a level where the cost, a startup can bear that kind of costs. Right? Those costs have come down significantly. However, we are not on par with China right now, but I think probably in the next 5 to 7 years, things are going to change very rapidly.
So that is what it means, right? Bringing supply chains back to India, right?
Correct.
So fantastic. Thanks a lot for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure having you here.